We have tons of news to cover today, including the latest trade talk on teams like the Oilers, the Canucks, as well as the Toronto Maple Leafs. We have teams like Ottawa and New Jersey taking players to Debrincat and Meier to club-elected salary arbitration. We have a lot of front office additions today, including news out of Calgary and Philadelphia, a bunch more signings, and a whole lot more coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, we have a lot to cover today. It was a jam-packed news day around the NHL. We have a lot to cover, signings, injuries, front office changes, all kinds of stuff. And we'll get into some trade talk later in a few minutes' time. But first up, I want to talk about some signings. We have some big ones and some smaller ones, but either way, there's a lot to cover. Let's start with Winnipeg. They've signed one of their prospects here, 2022 6th-round pick, Fabian Wagner, who's a 6-foot centerman from Sweden. He gets his 3-year entry-level contract, so he's officially signed. He likely plays in Sweden another year, but at least he's under contract. Had a pretty good development year playing over in Sweden this past season. Likely going to stay there again, but we'll see what happens. He could join the team in North America and play in the American Hockey League. The Ottawa Senators have also signed a Swedish prospect as well. They are also from the 2022 draft, 3rd-round centerman Oscar Peterson. So he gets his 3-year entry-level contract as well. Obviously, he's likely going to play in Sweden next year is the current plan. I believe he's going to be coming over to participate with the rookie camp, maybe training camp, then head back to play in the SHL. But he's a very interesting prospect as well. Another signing in Calgary as well. They've signed veteran centerman Clark Bishop, who's mostly been a minor leaguer kind of guy who goes up and down into the lineup. Pretty good American Hockey League player, decent 4th liner in the NHL. He gets a little bit of contract term and security. It's a 2-year, 2-way deal, $775,000 at the NHL level, $275,000 at the American Hockey League level. So that's a lucrative deal. So if he has to play in the AHL, at least he's getting paid a much higher salary. Certainly a big part of their Calgary Wranglers team this year. Could be, like I said, an option for bottom 6 duty, depending on injuries or whatnot in Calgary at the NHL level as well. So decent signing there. And the biggest signing of the day, the New Jersey Devils have come to terms with Jesper Bratt on an 8-year deal. I wasn't really sure this was going to happen. Last year, they had a very contentious negotiation, ended up settling on a 1-year contract. I wondered where things would go. I also even wondered if things didn't go well like it did last year. Could it end up resulting in a trade? But no, they get it done here. They get an 8-year deal at $7.875 million. So when you times that out over the 8 years, its total is $63 million. Yes, he wears number 63. For some reason, a lot of players are very superstitious with their contracts and the numbers. It's kind of weird, kind of a little bit stupid in my opinion, but hey, each their own. At the end of the day, he's getting paid a handsome sum of money to do what he does best for the Devils, and he's been a real good player for them in the past few years. And I know that they were really wanting to get this done. Obviously, some other decisions have to be made in New Jersey, which we're going to talk about a little bit later in the video. But this is a big domino to fall. I wondered if the Meier deal might get done first, or what other business the Devils and Tom Fitzgerald might tend to earlier in the offseason. But Bratt, like I said, pretty important deal. Now, the other important part of this as well is pretty much about 50% of his income is going to be paid out in the form of signing bonuses. He's getting big chunks of signing bonuses in most years of the contract as well. So that's obviously a sticking point, which I know I personally don't think teams should be allowed to pay out as much as they do in bonuses, because I know for some teams it's more challenging to do. Based on how he's played, being, point per game playmaking type of winger, I think this is a pretty fair contract and should age well with Bratt and the Devils. So with the cap going where it's at, they've got another piece of their core here locked up. This is a good deal. As much as I was not real confident they were going to get it done, this turned out way better than I ever possibly expected. Now, as I mentioned, we have some organizational updates with some players, former players, joining their teams in executive type roles. Another announcement out of Philadelphia. Yesterday, they announced that Patrick Sharp was joining them as a senior advisor, and that he'd be mostly working on the player development side with their younger players and prospects. Today, they've announced another addition to their front office staff. They've hired former Flyer John Leclair in the same role, as senior advisor to hockey operations. Now, it's believed that John Leclair will probably work closer with Keith Jones, more on the management side of things, have a different role. same title as Sharp, but be working on different things, which makes sense. So again, if you see a trend in Philadelphia, it's almost like it's a prerequisite to be a former Flyer, be an alumni there, to be hired. Although these are completely different guys than we've seen work on the Flyers management side in the past, obviously, not to, say that they're not worthy. I think that they're all well-respected, smart hockey people. So hopefully they do a better job, though, with the last batch of Flyers alumni, because it's really, that franchise has been largely run by former players in a variety of, like, a high number of roles for a long time. And so hopefully Jones and Briere and Leclair and Sharp and others there can get this team back on track, going through a rebuild and get things done the right way. That would be nice to see. And in Calgary, we got news today that's finally been made official that Jarome Iginla is returning to the Calgary Flames. Same type of role that we've seen the Flyers do here with Sharp and Leclair. His title is going to be Senior Advisor to Hockey Operations. We know that Jarome Iginla and Craig Conroy, the new GM in Calgary, have been great friends, former teammates for a long time. Apparently they made a friendship pact almost a long time ago, that when their playing days were done, they'd like to work together in hockey, and now they've made it happen. Of course, with Conroy being the new GM, it was widely expected that Iginla was likely going to be getting involved. He might have gotten involved with the Flames maybe anyways, it's possible, because obviously Conroy was an AGM before, he still would have been working there, but with him being the boss, it just makes them able to work together a little bit more closely, I guess. But Iginla is still going to be coaching his son for one more season before he kind of commits to more of a full-time role, but essentially he is going to be doing a lot. Probably won't be at every single game and be there every single day, but he will be working with the Flames this year, and then once the next season starts, he'll probably be more, even more hands-on. But like Iginla said, it's it's a great thing for him and Conroy to be back together. Great friends, great relationship. No big surprise. We were wondering when Conroy was introduced as GM if Iginla's announcement was going to be then, or was there going to be any involvement? Was it going to be for sure? And well, now we know. I think they just want to wait and let Conroy make this announcement a little bit further down the road. Now, some other news and notes from around the league. We actually had a trade today as well. Nothing too crazy or substantial, but the Dallas Stars have traded Fredrik Olofsson, left winger, who is a pending unrestricted free agent. They had signed him to a one-year deal. He had appeared in 28 games for the Stars this year, put up 4 points, and he was going to be a UFA. They've traded him to the Colorado Avalanche for future considerations, and then the Avalanche have turned around and signed him to a one-year deal for $775,000 for next season. So Fredrik Olofsson won't make it to be a UFA. He's already traded and locked up for next year. So essentially the Avs got his rights for nothing, for future considerations. I mean, I know he's not a big-name player and obviously didn't put up a lot of points last year or anything like that, but still interesting that they didn't at least trade a 7th-round pick or BC level prospect or something instead of just futures. But Fredrik Olofsson's been traded and now part of the Avalanche with a new contract ready for next year. Another interesting note as well, Nashville Predators prospect goalie Yaroslav Askarov has changed agencies that represent him. He's now represented by Gold Star and Dan Milstein. Now it's important to note he has 2 more years on his contract. Normally when you see players change agencies, it's usually closer to needing a new contract. That's not really the case here with Askarov, who's going to be on his ELC, except for the season coming up and one more after that. He's only been in North America for 1 year. This was his first year playing mostly in the American Hockey League. He played 1 NHL game. Had a real solid run in the AHL. I kind of wonder what this means. Why the change now? The timing seems a little odd to me. I know there's been some talk about possibly UC Saros maybe being traded by Nashville. I don't think they're, like I said, actively looking to move him, but it sounds like they'll consider it if the right deal comes along. I wonder if the agent is going to be pushing him for more playing time and try to get him more NHL time. I don't know what it all means. Maybe it's just a change more for the future, but interesting timing, I guess, in my opinion. We'll see how that plays out. One other injury update from the Stanley Cup Final. We knew the Florida Panthers had a ton of them injuries they were dealing with. Defenseman Aaron Ekblad, we knew he reported dealing with a variety of things that he was dealing with there, and we now know that he is going to be having a lengthy recovery. The shoulder that he was dealing with does need surgery. He's going to be having surgery shortly here, and he will not be ready for the start of training camp. He's probably going to miss, I think it's quite possible that he missed at least the first couple months of the season. So that's certainly going to be a big blow for the Panthers, and We don't know recovery time yet on Matthew Tkachuk and some of the other guys that were dealing with stuff. We also learned that Lusterinen was dealing with a broken fibia. So obviously that's why he was out the last number of games before he wasn't able to play either. So interesting there. The Panthers might be starting the season kind of banged up next year. In Montreal, we learned that Denis Gurianov, who they acquired from the Dallas Stars late in the season when they traded Evgeny Dadonov, was acquired. He's not going to be given a qualifying offer. He is a pending restricted free agent. He's not going to get that QO, which means he's going to become an unrestricted free agent and will be able to sign with any team. So Montreal is not going to attempt to re-sign Gurianov. And same goes for veteran Alex Belzille. He's an older player, hasn't played a ton in the NHL. Did get a chance this year, but he's a minor leaguer who's been obviously there for some time and just finally get a chance, and he's going to have to be looking for work for a new team in this offseason. Some other news and notes from around the league. Vancouver Canucks defenseman Ethan Bear, he's also going to be out likely until probably looking at November, December as well. He got hurt playing for Team Canada at the World Championships. The shoulder injury he was dealing with is going to require surgery, and he's looking at about a 6-month recovery. So given it being December, it's likely going to be into the early mid-December before he's likely going to be able to resume playing. So that's certainly not good for his career and a bad blow for the Canucks, who were, I think, looking forward to having him be a good part of their top 4 defensemen next year. Now he's only going to be able to play probably half the year. It's a risk that all players take going to the Worlds, and certainly something that you don't want to see happen for sure. Now, on to the trade talk. We want to get into a variety of things here. Let's start first with Ottawa and New Jersey. Alex Debrincat and Timo Meier, both big-time scoring wingers, needing new contracts, restricted free agents that are 1 year away from being a UFA. They're both going to be gone to club-elected salary arbitration. Ottawa had confirmed earlier in the day that the Senators were taking Debrincat to arbitration, and now we've found out as well that Tom Fitzgerald of the Devils will be doing the same thing with Timo Meier. Of course, both looking at substantial qualifying offers. Obviously Debrincat has a $9 million QO. Meier is 10. Reports out of San Jose were saying that before the Sharks traded him to the Devils, that they did talk extension. They were considering keeping him, and that apparently they had talks on a long-term deal at slightly more than $9 million per season, and that was rejected. Now, could be rejected. Maybe he decided he wanted to move and get into a more competitive situation, but if it's only rejected because of money, that's certainly not good news for New Jersey. I mean, certainly I think they're trying to set a standard here in the Jack Hughes neighborhood. Obviously, they kind of, did the same thing here with Bratt, but I mean, Meier's got the goal scoring ability to justify a big salary, but he wasn't really overly productive and effective during his short stint with the Devils at the end of the year and into the playoffs. So I'm not sure how this is going to go, but club elected salary arbitration, in case you're not aware, allows the team to argue and ask for as much as a 15% discount on a 1-year contract. Now, how this works is that they can continue to negotiate on a long-term deal, or the player could be traded and sign a new contract with the new team. But once the hearing begins for that arbitration, they cannot sign anything more than a 1-year contract. And then once you sign a 1-year contract, you can't do an extension until after January the 1st. So if we get to the point that the club elected arbitration date is going to be taking place and Debrincat is still in Ottawa and Meier is still in New Jersey, then they're going to have to do 1-year deals once that starts. It's not really ideal. They're both going to be walked to UFA status. Doesn't mean they're going to be goners for sure. There's a lot of talk from Frank Saravalli and Chris Johnson, Elliot Friedman. They've all been talking about Debrincat a bit, suggesting that the Senators would rather get something done much sooner than that this is basically just a fallback option in case they can't find a trade that meets their needs of what they're going to be looking for. There's reportedly a lot of interest amongst the teams that Debrincat has given the Senators as preferred destination. And if the trade heats up and they'd like to get something done by the draft if they can, obviously they want to be able to either get a comparable player who can play a similar role for them, or they need to get future-based assets so they can flip maybe to another team to find that player as well, depending on what teams they're all kind of dealing with. So it sounds more and more like that a Debrincat trade is more likely than not, but I guess there is still that possibility if they don't find that trade and they want to, decide that they're going to hang on to him, that they can get a 1-year deal, knock that salary down into that 7.5 range, which is a lot more, feasible and more fair, in my opinion, for what he brings to the table. And then they can choose to either extend him if they can change his mind and want him to stay, or they can trade him later into the season. He can do a contract extension with his new team at that point. So we'll see. But it's believed that Debrincat would be most valuable in a trade if they do a sign and trade, like we see with Matthew Tkachuk and Damon Severson. Obviously, a player coming with term, much better odds of getting a better return going the other way. So we'll see. But a Debrincat trade is looking more and more likely. I don't know if we can really say that about Timo Meier in New Jersey. It's believed that they're willing to do the 1-year deal, obviously, if need be. But the belief and hope here is that they hammer out, a contract extension before then. But I honestly think they're going to be in a real tough territory. I know Timo Meier seemed to really like it in New Jersey. I know he's good friends with fellow countryman and team captain Nico Hischier. I think he'd love to stay. But based on what he's rejected before and what the Devils have kind of set as a standard here for how the players kind of follow the pecking order on this team, I think it's going to be a really tough deal to get done. I'm not sure that we're going to see the same kind of contract that we just saw for Jesper Bratt. So we'll see. I don't think a Meier trade is as likely as Debrincat, but I guess anything can be possible when negotiations don't go well. Now, when it comes to the Leafs, Frank Saravalli and Chris Johnson in their recent podcast are both talking about some of their players. Chris Johnson was saying that he believes that veteran players on the Leafs that are UFAs, like Alex Kerfoot, Justin Hall, and even Michael Bunting, have all been told to hit the market, that they're not going to be re-signed. So expect those guys to move on. They're obviously going to have to find other valuable players for good prices that can replace some of these guys, especially what Bunting does, where he's been a top 6 addition with Matthews, especially for the past couple of seasons. CJ was also talking about William Nylander. I know Nylander's been getting all the trade talk in Toronto lately because a lot of people are saying that, which makes a lot of sense, that they're not convinced that Nylander, if he is traded, it's not going to be because the Leafs just absolutely want to shake things up and that they just want to do something different here with this core. They're going to trade him if they do because they can't really justify paying him what he wants. It's believed he's going to look for at least $9 million. It's probably going to be more than that, considering the point totals and goal scoring that he put up this past year. I won't be shocked if we find out that he and his agent are looking for 9.5, 9.75, something of that. And if it starts getting up there closer to 10 or more, like the Leafs are going to have to probably cut bait and walk away and consider trading him. And that's the only reason they likely would, is if they can't come to common ground here on a new fair contract. But as CJ mentions, he believes that they're trying hard to get a Nylander deal done ahead of time, maybe even long before Matthews. They're not worried about Matthews wanting to stay. For example, Nathan McKinnon didn't sign last year well until the offseason. I believe it was into September, if I'm not mistaken. If I remember correctly, it was quite late into right around training camp. So obviously, I don't think the Leafs are too worried about Matthews right now. They want to get it done, obviously, but I think they can kind of target Nylander, is what CJ is saying. They get this done first, just to know, is he going to be here or not? We're not messing around here. We know the agent is, obviously well known for having these real contentious negotiations. Their first go around of this current contract with Willie was not done, very good in that sense. It drug out forever. Almost didn't play a whole season. Tree Living dealt with Louis Gross, his agent, on the Johnny Gaudreau contract. To look what happened there. They kind of led them to believe they were staying and then chose not to. So that they need a quick answer here. And if they can't get it done quickly, that's what likely could lead to a trade. And we'll see. But otherwise, you're looking at the Leafs kind of having, because they have a lot of other things to do. They need to know the number on him so they can get the rest of their roster filled out, because they're going to have a lot of top or bottom 6 and adaptive D positions available. They're going to make a decision getting Samsonov re-signed if they're going to keep him as a goalie. There's a lot there that Brad Treliving has to work with, and getting these contracts in place would be huge. When it comes to Edmonton, it's believed, based on what they were saying on TSN's Insider Trading and Pierre LeBrun, that the Oilers would like to add a top 6 forward of value, so somebody who can play top 6, middle 6, but a good value forward. It's not going to cost them a ton of money. He mentions Connor Brown as a potential option as a free agent. I know Brown's been linked to the Oilers for a while. I think largely because of the fact that he played for the same junior team as Connor McDavid. Their junior careers did overlap a little bit. So I think that, that there's been that connection. Maybe that's what it is. Connor Brown is a heck of a good skater, would add some speed and, certainly has some capabilities offensively, good PK guy as well. As they also mentioned that the Oilers would like to add a top 4 defenseman and that they have their eye on Brett Pesce in Carolina. Now, Pesce just changed agents as well. Carolina is going to be looking to extend him, but we know the Canes are not willing to overpay players. They set a boundary with all kinds of all their players. When they need to do deals, they're like, okay, this is the maximum we're giving you. Take it or leave it. And if the player says, I don't know, they're like, okay, go hit the market. If you can find a better deal elsewhere, go for it. And that's it. Now, of course, he's still under contract for a year, so it's not like he's going to be just completely gone. But if the negotiations don't go well, it's fair to say they'll look for a trade. Now, the Oilers likely would look to move guys like, Cody Ceci, maybe Warren Fogle. Yamamoto was another one to watch. He could be a bio candidate, too, that we could see here in the next couple of days as they try to free up some cap space to make that happen. But certainly interest there from Edmonton to Carolina on Pesce. And in Vancouver, Darren Dreger on a recent Vancouver podcast was talking about some of the names in play there. Brock Besser's name continues to come up. Now, we had heard a little while ago that Besser had gone to Canucks management and asked them to not trade him. And I believe that's the case. And I think they'll have a hard time with it anyways, even if they want to. But his name is out there. Connor Garland and Tyler Myers, I think, are the more likely players to go. They have contracts at this point that are a little bit more reasonable. Myers down to 1 year. Garland, obviously, not quite as substantial as some of the other guys. And Anthony Beauvillier is another name that came up by Darren Dreger. Not so much that the Canucks absolutely want to trade him, but they need some flexibility cap-wise, and they need to trade a player that has some value. And he came over from the Islanders last year in the Horvat trade and actually did really well and scored a bunch of goals. So they might be able to sell high on him, so to speak, as he hasn't proven in his career that he can do that consistently. So they might want to maximize that value and see if they can get some good cap relief in other areas there. We'll see. Vancouver should be interesting to watch and how they do. But I think a lot of these teams, especially the Canadian teams, are going to be very, very interesting. Lots of busyness for sure. And we didn't even talk about Winnipeg today, and we know how busy they're likely going to be. So let me know your thoughts on all of today's news and notes down in the comments. We'll discuss further. If you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe. Stick around. We'll keep you up to date with all the latest news, rumors, and analysis on all 32 NHL teams. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you next time.